Well, SS Ralph is a writer from Newfoundland, Canada, who's on the line with us here just now. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing smashing, thanks. What time is it for you right now, by the way?
It's 4:30 in the
Wow.
morning. I got to go to work at 6. So,
Oh. Now, I want to talk about your Driftwood Blackheart series first of all. How would you describe the series overall?
overall, it's like a mashup of horror, sci-fi, and dark comedy.
And what inspired it?
Something I thought about, like the storyline, a long time, and I just started writing it down. I do construction, and
Yeah.
sometimes I end up at these work camps where there's just nothing to do, and I just started jotting it down, and it became like a series of 6 books. But I had to get the whole story down to make sure it all, worked out in the end and got connected. And so, anyway, the first one's published, but there's 5 more on the way, and I think there's 5 more series or 4 more series going to be after that to
Wow.
tell the complete Driftwood Blackheart saga. But the God-fearing people is the first series, and then it's going to go from there.
Yeah. And is it hard to mix horror and black comedy?
It is, but like some of my favorite movies are like Evil Dead and Chainsaw Massacre. So it's something
Yeah.
like that. It's gory. But it's also kind of a little bit hilarious.
Yeah. And who's it aimed at as well? I mean, is it a horror audience or is it a little bit more comical than that?
It's tricky when you do the genre mashups because
Yeah.
like say somebody likes horror, and if it's not scary enough, they say, well, it's not really a good horror book, and
Mm.
if it's not funny enough, they say, well, it's not a really good dark comedy, and if it's not technical enough, they say, well, it's not really sci-fi either. So it's a dangerous game, but I just took a stab at it because it's all the things I like. I like horror, I like sci-fi, and I like dark comedy. So I just kind of mashed it all together, and I'm hoping there's other people like me that would enjoy it. I hope there's lots of other people like me that enjoy it, but
Yeah.
there might only be a handful, right? I don't
Yeah.
know, but I hope other people will enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Do you feel like it's important to just do what you want to do and not really care about perhaps the powers that be and what they want?
Yeah. Well, they say write a book that you would like to read.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and like I said, I hope there's a lot more people like me out there that'll enjoy reading it. But
Mm.
if not, then I enjoyed writing it, and it is what it is.
Yeah. And how long has it taken you so far to write this series?
I'd say it took a better part of 4 or 5 years. And that's
Wow.
just because I work full time,
Yeah.
sometimes 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then I have a family. So, I mean, trying to sneak in time writing when I wasn't away working or something, or when I was home was a bit tricky. It's always a constant struggle to find time writing.
Yeah.
And, but I never had any trouble with writer's block. I have this whole story to tell, not only this series, but the next 4 series. I just got to get it down and find time to get it out there.
Yeah, that's the thing. I suppose you must be really struggling considering you have to do this interview at just after 4:30 now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you find time? Are there some days where perhaps you just don't have time?
No, and those aren't good days. I like to at
Yeah.
least put in an hour or two a day,
Mm.
and you can get a lot of words down in that time if you're,
Yeah.
it takes time, yeah. And hopefully, if this takes off, then I'll have more time to do it, because
Mm.
like I said, right now it's I only got the first book published, but maybe by the end of the series, I'll have more time to just write after that.
Yeah. And did you have to do any maybe research for this book at all?
No, like most of it was up in my head. Like when you get
Yeah.
into sci-fi, you got to make sure that it's not something that's silly. It's got to be believable. So
Yeah.
not a lot of research, but most of my experience comes from all the books I read. I read like so many books, it's ridiculous. My house looks like one of those used bookshops, and there's like. So yeah, like a lot of my research comes from the books I read. A lot of the science fiction side of it's comparable to like the Dune saga. I'm a huge fan of Frank Herbert, and
Yeah.
that's sort of where like if anybody knows that story, the first book kind of starts in the middle of the story, and then it goes into the future, and then it goes into the past, and then it all kind of like comes full circle. And that's the same sort of goal with the Driftwood Blackheart saga. This first series is sort of like the tip of the iceberg. And then when you get to the end of the sixth book, you realize there's a way bigger story here. And then it gets more involved, and you got to really read into it to kind of solve there's a lot of mystery. I don't want to say it's a mystery book because, I don't want a fan of, mystery to say, oh, this is a mystery, but there is a lot of mystery there, and it's something you got to read into. There's clues in every book, and eventually you find out that the main character in the whole story, not this first series, but the whole big story is Driftwood Blackheart, and he's a mysterious character, and he ties everything together, and that's the big story.
Yeah.
And if you go to my website, there's a little, you can see blurbs about the next 4 books coming out, but I don't want to say too much. I don't want to spoil it. Like I said, it's something you want to read into, but there's also a page about Driftwood Blackheart and his backstory, and it doesn't explain a lot, but it sort of, hints at who he is and maybe how he ties in with the whole story.
Yeah. Because you get a lot of your inspiration from reading other books, is it sometimes hard to come up with a new original idea even? I don't want to accuse you of plagiarism, but is it sometimes hard to not copy stuff even subconsciously?
Because the main reason that inspired me to start writing is because there was so much stuff that was redone. Like I don't watch TV or movies anymore because it's all remakes, and it's all, if it's not a remake, it's the same story, like vampires and zombies and doctors and lawyers and cops, and I'm just so sick of it all. And I thought, is it so hard to come up with something original? And I said, well, if you think it's easy, why don't you try it? And that's what I did. So I come up with something I don't think anybody's ever done before, and I hope somebody wants to read something different, and hopefully like people that like zombies and vampires and cops and robbers, they might not like it, but I'm not reaching out to them. I'm reaching out to people like me that want an original story. So, and with the play, like copying things, like my favorite authors are Clive Barker and Frank Herbert. So mashing those two together is kind of weird, and I'll admit that it's different and it's not done, but I definitely didn't rip off anything they did, but I did take a lot of their style and I just kind of mashed it together. So it's kind of like a scary science fiction sort of thing. And a lot of people are waiting for that. They say, well, there hasn't been that since Alien or, Deep Horizon, and everybody's waiting for the next scary psychological kind of thing that messes your head. And I hope I pulled that off a little bit. And I scratched that itch for some people.
Yeah. And the name Driftwood Blackheart, where did that come from?
I was just going to go with Driftwood, but I guess there's a writer from Calgary that already had a character named Driftwood. So I just kind of had to come up with something original. So, and I was thinking he's kind of like a freedom fighter. He's kind of like a humanitarian. So I thought of, he's kind of like a pirate. So I just put the Blackheart with that, and just to be original, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. And of course, you've mentioned the future book coming up. There are 4, aren't there? What are you able to tell us about them without giving too much away?
There's 6 actually, but I only posted 4 on my website because, like I said, I don't want to give away too much information, or else you're just going to know what you're reading. I don't want it to be too predictable, because the whole thing, when you read the first book, it's supposed to kind of make you wonder about certain things and read into it. So I don't want to say too much, but the first book is more like introduction to all the characters, and it sets the scene. And the second book, it starts getting more involved. You start digging deeper. You find out that this town, New Hope, that's supposed to be all religious and pious, is got a dark underbelly. And then you find out that the hell, the city that lives close on them and spying on them, they're supposed to be mean and cruel and sadistic, but these are people too. Like, it's not a fantasy like the devils and demons. They're just deformed people that have enhanced senses from their disabilities. So they go to school, they fall in love, they get married, they have kids. These are people too, and even though they have a 9-to-5 job, to torture people, they have feelings, and it just gets more involved. And then the third book, you realize that hell's going to invade this town because it's their job. They're supposed to be watching these people, and if they sin, if they stop believing in the devil and the demons, they got to remind them. So. And then the fourth book, they invade him again. It happened before. The main character, Jacob Miller, his grandfather warned everybody. He's like one of the few survivors actually seen this happen. And this book is a lot about complacency. They say, is this believable? Do you think you could forget about something like that happening after 2 generations? Well, sure it can. My grandfather fought in World War II, and all the stuff that he fought for, all our freedoms are taken for granted, and everything he went through is it's crazy how soon we forget the lessons learned in life, and that's the moral of the story. Is there's good and there's evil, but there's a lot of gray area in between. People that are supposed to be good do bad things, and people that are evil do good things, and it kind of blurs the lines between good and evil, and I think that's what life's about.
Do you think that that's an important lesson to be learned?
I think it is, and I like I said, I wrote the books for my entertainment, but I hope it reaches out to some people too, and I try to be a good person, and eventually if this takes off, I want there to be links on my website for charity and organizations, because like I said, the main character, Driftwood Blackheart, he's a humanitarian, so I want to sort of model him. I want him to set an example for people. He's trying to help people, and I want to be able to help people through him. I want to kind of flesh him out and make him like a real person that helps people.
Yeah. And what is the time scale for these books? Have you finished them yet, or are you still writing them?
There's 6. The 6 books in the first series is done. Like I said, I had to write the whole thing to make sure it all worked out, because I didn't want to write say 1 or 2 or 3 books and then sort of write myself in a corner, and I'm not sure like how many books are going to come out after that, or how it's going to end, or if it's going to drag on. So to get the whole story out, I had to do all 6, and I knew it was too big for one book. Obviously, it was something like 800,000 words. So at first I split it into 3. But when you're a new author, you can't have like first of all, you can't have like a book like Stephen King. It's like, okay, who's this guy? I'm not going to invest my time into this phone book here. So I had to split it in 3 again. So it's one big story, but it's split into 6 books, and it's all done. I'm just going through the process of publishing them, and I'm hoping to come out with one every maybe 3 or 4 months, because I don't want to keep people hanging there either. The first book has a bit of a cliffhanger. I like to call it more like a hook. Nobody likes a really bad cliffhanger, but more so if it doesn't come out with the second one right away, they forget, they lose interest. They don't want to have to reread the book again just to remind them about the setting and the characters. So I'm going to try to keep the books coming out, and hopefully whoever's interested will be happy with that.
And it's interesting because I suppose you've got to have that perfect time. 3 months is probably about right, because it's not so short that people don't even have a chance to read the book first, and it's not so long that people are bored waiting and forget. And
there's my budget too, and my my time. Like if I'm not writing, I'm working on marketing and covers and editing and all that jazz, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And will there be more books even after these ones, maybe?
Yes, and if you look on my website, on the whole page at the bottom, it tells you the series that are coming out. And like I said, I'm probably going to have to write the whole series and then split it up into so many books. So the next series might have 3 or 4 books. It might have 6 or 7. I don't really know. But there's definitely going to be 4 more series to tell the complete Driftwood Blackheart story.
Yeah. And will there ever be a point where you go, that's it, it's done? Because there are some authors and filmmakers and whatever that feel like you've got to finish it after a certain amount, because you don't want to go too far and ruin it.
Actually, when I get to that point, I'm not sure what I'll do. I'll have to come up with another storyline or something, because like there's so many books just for this one story, and it's going to take a long time. But if I live long enough, I'll eventually get to the point. It's like, okay, I got to come up with something different here, and then at that point, I guess I'll have to come up with something different, I guess. But I still read the Dune books. There's like 20 of them, but a lot of people are saying they're kind of milking it now. The story was told, and now they're just coming up in between the lines and just whipping it to death. I don't want to do that. I might come up with a few books that have some side stories of some characters that become popular, but I don't want to milk it to death.
Yeah. But then would you milk it to death if somebody gave you $1 billion deal?
I don't know. Maybe, they say, ABBA, everybody wanted ABBA to play live, and they threw millions of billions of dollars, and they said, no, we're done. You can't pay us enough. But I don't know. I want to stay loyal to my fans, and if they think it's enough, I'll say it's enough. If they want more, then I'll give them more.
Yeah, and the only way they could get ABBA to play live again is if they're not really there.
Yeah, maybe the holograms or something, eh?
Yeah, I don't know. Is there like a way you could do that with books? I guess you could get somebody to ghostwrite your book. That's the
Yes.
equivalent, isn't it?
And like Stephen King writes so much, and it's like, is he even doing it anymore, or does he just like pick his brain and put it on paper? Because that's a lot, and they say no, he writes a lot. It's ridiculous, but I have I have my doubts sometimes. I think he's got a little help there.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he just comes up with the ideas, and they just write it for him. I think, but that's fine because he's a genius, and what's the difference if he writes it or somebody else writes it? It's his thoughts going on papers, right? So
let's just hope we don't get a libel letter from Stephen King's lawyers.
Oh no, yeah. I love Stephen King. I don't read a lot of his books. I find them a bit wordy, but all his movies, like since I was growing up, a lot of it inspired me. Like I said, a lot of my inspiration comes from the music I listen to and all the horror movies I watched growing up as a kid. So I mean, if he didn't have all those movies, I definitely wouldn't be what I'm doing today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huge inspiration he is. Yeah.
So what actually got you interested in writing in the first place?
I used to write a lot when I was younger, and I used to win awards and stuff, and I had some stuff published, and then I just gave it up because, people just started expecting it, and it's like they just, it was a lot of pressure when I was younger. So I just totally gave it up. And then one of my kids, he started writing and he wanted some help. And then I started helping him. And then I realized how much I enjoyed it and how much I miss it. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, you got this story and you want to do something original. Let's start panning it out here. Let's start typing and see what you can do with it. And then once I got started, once I got the characters kind of fleshed out, they sort of took a life of their own, and they just, the story kind of started writing itself. I don't know if anybody that writes has any similar, feels the same way, but I suppose not, because some people, they say have writer's block and they have trouble getting the story out. I never had that. My problem is finding the time just to get the words on the computer, you know what I mean? So
yeah, you don't tend to get writer's block, but do you still believe in it? Do you think it could happen at some point?
Something similar is like sometimes you have a plot twist and it's like, oh geez, this happened in one chapter and how's it going to work in the next chapter? So sometimes I struggle to work little situations like that out, but it always works itself out for me, and somehow I just figure a way to kind of make everything connect and make sure that characters interact with each other a certain way, and they have a life of their own. And like I said, if you have characters that are well fleshed out, they just kind of write themselves. They make a story for themselves, and how they're going to interact with other people. And then the hardest part for me was at the end of the sixth book, a lot of them die, and it was heartbreaking for me because these are almost like people that were part of my life for 4 or 5 years, and now they're gone. And I hope the readers kind of feel for them too when that happens, because I always say if you don't make people laugh and cry or scared to go to sleep at night, you're probably not a really good writer.
Yes. Do you feel like the book just writes itself, or is it just that you have a deep knowledge of your characters that helps?
At first, it was like, getting the characters, like their backstory and their personality, and their quirks. And once all those characters sort of kind of came to life, they just started to write themselves. They interact with each other, and you just know what's going to happen. Like this guy meets this guy, they're not going to get along, and something violent might happen, or maybe these two characters will fall in love. Okay, well, definitely these two characters will love each other, and then it becomes a love story or whatever. And like I said, it's a horror and it's a sci-fi and it's dark comedy, but there's a lot of mystery, there's a lot of romance and everything in between, because that's a well-rounded story, right?
Yes. Do you feel like you have to have created the characters yourself to be able to know them in that way? Because I feel like even the biggest fans of certain franchises, if they wrote a book or a script about certain characters, they could still get it quite wrong.
It's funny, like I said, a lot of it it was inspired by the movies I watched as a kid, but most of it is inspired by the music I listen to. So certain characters were based on certain singers, favorite singers or people in bands I listen to. So it's actually probably it'll be a fun game for the readers to kind of guess who which character or which singer inspired which character or something, because I can't come out and say it because then I'll get sued for copyright infringement. But definitely like a lot of characters were based on real people, and there's little hints and little clues that point out who's based on who. But I'd say 90% of my characters are based on celebrities, people that inspired me to like music growing up, and not so much actors, but musicians and stuff.
Do you remember what your favorite book was as a child?
The very first book I read that I wasn't forced to read, because when you're in school they make you read The Outsider, To Kill a Mockingbird, and I didn't enjoy those because it's not something I wanted to read, but I was forced to read it. So at first I didn't like reading, but the very first book that I wanted to read was Papillon, which is a real life, it's a true story about the guy that escaped from Devil's Island. And after I read that, I never stopped. I just kept reading so much. And at first I was reading like real life stuff, like nonfiction, but then I started getting into fiction. So I read a lot of fiction and I read a lot of nonfiction still. Like I read a lot of biographies, and like I said, a lot of characters are based on real people. And I know a lot about these people because I read their biographies and stuff, and a lot of their personality comes from that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Biographies are quite interesting to read. Do you feel like you have to have a particular interest in the person before reading it, or do you like to just find any biography, maybe somebody you never even heard of?
What fascinates me the most, I think, is like somebody might be famous, huge, but most of them come from nowhere, like these little back towns, and how they came to be where they are now is always what fascinates me. And I think that's some of them are born into it, like John Lennon's kid, he was born to be a singer and a star, but somebody like Elvis or something, or Johnny Cash, or they sort of crawled out of the dirt, and they made a huge name for themselves. Those are the stories that interest me the most.
Oh yeah,
how they got to where they are today.
Yeah, and you've mentioned a couple of these already, but are there any authors that have inspired you?
Well, my favorite author by far is Clive Barker, and like I said, I like Stephen King, like his movies, but I don't read his books. I just find them a bit wordy and hard to get through. But Clive Barker has a lot of movies, and they always say, the book's better than the movie. Like nothing is more true with Clive Barker. Like the first time I read Clive Barker, he ruined everything for me in a way, because nothing else compares to him. And whenever he comes out with a new book, I'm the first one to buy it. And I write horror, but I don't actually read any other horror books, because Clive Barker just he blew everybody out of the water. And it's hard to compare any writing to him. He inspired me the most, for sure. If anything, I try to write like him, and he kind of branched out from horror to fantasy, but all his books are very humorous in a way, and that's where the dark comedy comes. So this book is sort of like Clive Barker. I think is comparable to that, but it's also like comparable to Frank Herbert's The Dune Saga, just the whole series, because there's going to be so many books based on the one story, and there's a lot of science fiction involved with it, and it gets more sci-fi with the other series. This one's more like a horror dark comedy, and people say, well, it's not really scientific, but when you get to the end of the sixth book, you realize, oh my god, okay, well this is sci-fi. This is like a universe, and you know what I mean. There's a lot of world building here, and there's more to this story.
And on the other hand, are there any authors that you don't like? That's what we really want to know.
Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Stephen King, and I tried to get into his books, but they're just a bit too wordy for me, and a lot of them I didn't finish. Like I just, even like the movies that I like say I like the movie that he did, and I thought, well, the book's got to be better. Yeah. And it's not like if you read The Shining and you compare it to the movie, it's like, no way. His movies are awesome, and I just love it. And then I try to read the books, and I just can't get into it.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's usually the other way around, isn't it?
It is. He's the only one that's the opposite for me. And like I said, I'm not bashing his writing. Like he's a brilliant writer, but I just rather watch his movies and stuff.
Yes.
But Clive Barker's the other way. His movies seem kind of silly, and they don't get into like how he writes, how his style. I think one of them was close. Lord of Illusions was close to sort of how he writes. But like if you watch Hellraiser and you compare that to Hellbound Heart, or you watch Nightbreed and compare that to Cabal, it's not even close.
Yeah.
The books are like so much better.
But is that to do with the author, or is it more just the director and the budget and things?
I think the biggest problem when you make a movie out of a book is you don't get into the character's head. You can't see what they're thinking. But when you're reading it, you sort of become that character. You know what I mean? You get into their head and you know what they're thinking. Like when you watch the movie, it's like, okay, well, this guy kills this other guy, and that's all you see. But you don't realize what he's thinking while he's doing it, or why he did that. Really, you just kind of have to guess. But the good thing about books is it explains all that. You know what I mean? You get right in their head, and it's. I think movies are like two-dimensional, and books are like 3D. You know what I mean? It's not just what you're seeing; it's what you know about them, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, and when you're reading a descriptive scene, your imagination is always going to be better than whatever they could reproduce on a film.
Yeah, and there's a lot of characters in my books, and I was hoping it wouldn't confuse too many people, but it sort of jumps around, and you jump from one character to another. You get in their head, and each chapter is kind of like a short story in itself, and then it's a collection of short stories, but it becomes part of a bigger story. And like I said, each chapter is a different character, and you sort of jump around in their minds, in their situation, in their scenes. And it just tells a one big story, and the story gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more you read it. Like I said, it's kind of like an onion or an ogre. It's got lots of layers.
Yeah. Do you feel like writing energizes you, or does it exhaust you?
I'm just glad to get it down. You know what I mean? Like I said, I have all these thoughts, and even when I'm working, I'm thinking about writing. So when I get home, it's like, okay, finally I can pen this down before I forget. I gotta make this guy do this, and gotta make this girl do that. And so it's very satisfying to me to get it down on not paper, I guess. Nobody it's on paper anymore, but on computer, I guess. And
yes.
Once I get it down there, it's like, okay. And like I said, I enjoy writing so much. Finding the time is my biggest problem. So I'm very, very satisfied every time I find time and just get it down.
Yes, that's the thing. Writing on a computer, is it easier to be distracted that way? Because I don't know how much social media you use, but Facebook or Twitter is right there, isn't it? Whereas if you were using an old-fashioned typewriter or just writing down on a notepad, you're less susceptible to distractions.
Yeah, the only thing is I need quiet. Like I don't write a lot at home because my wife's watching TV and I don't have my own room, and I don't do a lot of it there. But when I go to work and I'm away on these jobs where basically I work and I sleep in a camp, a room all by myself, and it's quiet and there's nothing else to do. There's a TV there, but I never turn it on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I turn my laptop on and I just write and I work and I write and I work and I write. And then I go home after so long, maybe it's a few months, maybe it's a year, and then I spend time with the family, and I don't do a lot of writing when I'm home, obviously, because I just want to spend time with them. But then if the story is hanging there, I'll wake up early in the morning when they're all sleeping and I'll just start writing just to kind of get it out, right? I got to be sneaky, I guess, or not sleep at all. I don't know.
Yeah. And you mentioned at the start, of course, that sometimes it's hard to find time to write. So on top of that, how do you find time to read and maybe watch a few Stephen King films?
Well, I watch movies a lot with my kids. Like my youngest kid, he's like a huge horror buff, and he wants to watch all those movies I watched when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
It's like his life goal, and we watch them together, and it's fun. And with books, I read when I'm at work. I have 2 or 3 breaks, so I take a book with me. So I read a book probably in a few weeks. I go through a lot of books that way. And then if I'm at an airport, I travel a lot. I read when I'm on but I never read when I'm at home. I just don't have time. I'm writing or I'm spending time with the family. But when I have my little breaks at work, I always got my nose in a book and I'm in my own world, and it's an escape for me. People say, well, why do you read instead of talk to us? Or, you know what I mean? Or I said, well, I said, I can pretend I'm somewhere else for a while. I don't want to be here at work. I don't want to be on this construction site. I want to be on a different planet, or I want to be, in a different world. And this book takes me there for a few minutes a day.
Yeah. And you mentioned you bring a book to the airport. Do you read on a plane? Because I often bring a book with the intention of doing so, but then I'm just too excited and I want to look at the clouds.
I can't read like while I'm flying. Well, actually, I can, but I can't do it while I'm driving or something. I get motion sickness, but
Yeah.
sometimes I read while I'm flying, but usually you're waiting a long time for your flight, and
Oh
there's
yeah.
hours to kill there, and most people are just flipping through their phones or whatever. But I'm right into the book or whatever I'm
Yeah.
reading at the moment.
Yes. And if you were reading when you're driving, presumably you'd be a passenger, right?
Well, I mean, if somebody else is driving, I'm the
Yeah.
passenger, like, because, I could be in a car for hours, but I can't read or even look at a map or my phone for 2 minutes. I'll want to
Yeah.
be sick.
Yeah. If you weren't an author, what do you think you'd be doing?
If I was a full-time author, I think I'd just be writing like crazy. And I think, like I joked earlier, like Stephen King can't possibly have time to write all these books, but I think he does, and that's what I want to do. I want to just write, and then in my free time, I want to kind of do a lot of charity, give back to people, and try to help the world.
Yeah. Well, you're planning on starting a non-profit charity, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd like to, but right now I'm trying to help myself. I'm trying to pay off my house so I can spend more time with my family. And when I get my time freed up a bit, then I'll definitely start giving back to. There's so many people out there that have less than us, like don't even have clean water or medication to things like leprosy. It's ridiculous. And then there's celebrities that spend $10 million on a wedding ring and then they're divorced a month later. And it's makes me, I hate that. If I had $10 million, I'd build, 10 wells, you know what I mean? And people will have water to drink and I don't know, make sock monkeys for the kids in the village or something, anything just to help these people out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I had any free time, that's what I would do.
Wells seem expensive though, don't they?
They are, yeah. Like I said, they're probably $1 million each. If I can build one, just think how happy that one town would be, how much it would change their lives, right? Or just how much does a generator cost, and then they can have electricity and stuff like that. And we don't realize how much people are suffering because we're in our own little world, and even though I feel like I'm struggling paying bills and stuff, we're rich, you know what I mean? And compared to some people.
And it's interesting because I don't know if this is a thing in your country too, but if you watch daytime TV here in the UK, most of the adverts are for charities, particularly about people who need water. And those adverts have been going on for all my lifetime. It doesn't seem like anything is improving.
Yeah, it's like I said, like there's so many people that could help other people, but the greed is the downfall of, and I think Driftwood he's targeting greedy people, and I hope he'll bring them down, because I always say if you're comfortable, you should be helping somebody else be more comfortable. And there's just so many people that don't do that. They want to be a big shot, or maybe it's a mental illness. Some people have billions of dollars and it's never enough. They want more billions, and they don't even spend that money. I go to these jobs, and they used to have flights, and I could spend more time with my family. But these billionaires, these fat cats, don't want to pay for that stuff, and they're not even like spending this money. It's like they probably have a yacht and a jet plane already, but they want 2 or 3 or 4, and it's ridiculous. And it's hopefully I can make a difference and stop stuff like that from happening. An example,
I suppose it could be argued, though, that it's simple human nature to want to provide as much as you possibly can for yourself and not really care about strangers thousands of miles away.
It is human nature. It's human nature to take advantage, and to be a better person, you got to kind of look outside that and say, well, okay, well, do I really need all this stuff, or can I help somebody else out, or what I mean? A lot of it's just bragging rights, you know what I mean? Like you watch rap videos and they're just throwing money in the air because they're it'd be a lot cooler if those dollar bills landed on and people picked it up that could use it, people that are homeless or are hungry or whatever, you know what I mean? And if I had money to throw around, I would do that. I would throw it at people that need it.
Yes. I think there was somebody once in history, well, not in history, like, last century, whose car got broken into, and I think they got a load of money stolen, but they didn't care because they were like, well, whoever stole it needs it more than me.
Exactly. Or else it would still be there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, hopefully, like I said, I'm struggling. I don't see my family much. I work 10 hours a day, sometimes every day. And I don't think that's fair. Like I said, there's greedy people that should be flying me home and sharing the wealth or improving our lifestyles. But hopefully when if this takes off, and I'll definitely give back as much as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And as well, you're planning on selling some merchandise related to this book series.
Yeah, well, the first book doesn't get into it much, but if you go to my website, there's links to TikTok and stuff, and I've been making a lot of videos, and most of them are about sock monkeys. People are thinking, well, why is a horror writer making these cute little sock monkeys and doing all these trendy videos and stuff? But when you read the books, you realize that sock monkeys are a big part of the story. They become characters and stuff. I won't get into it too much because I don't want to give too many spoilers. But so eventually, every time a book cover comes out, I want to have a shirt, make shirts for the book covers. And then I want to, they'll also be able to buy sock monkeys, and they'll have certificates of authenticity, saying that this was made by Driftwood Blackheart, even though it's me. Like I said, I want to flesh that character out and make him a real person. I want him to give to charity, and I want him to make sock monkeys for people that want to buy them for their kids or just for themselves or whatever. And they're definitely going to go up in value because if I get assassinated for helping too many people out, or I get incarcerated from just being a crazy guy, and they'll increase in value, right?
Yeah, probably.
Might pay $50 for one, but if I become famous, they'll be worth thousands, right?
Yeah, I think so. And sock monkeys are sometimes, I think they look a little bit creepy.
Yeah, like if you watch the videos, some of them are creepy, some of them are funny, some of them are trendy. Most of them are trendy because that's how you get more followers.
Yes.
Somebody will do something that got 1,000 likes, and I'll sort of do the same skit, but I'll do it with a sock monkey, and then I hope to kind of steal their fame a little bit. And
yes, that's an idea. So, what do you like to get up to in your spare time when you're not actually writing and things? Do you have time for other stuff?
Yeah, like I said, I'm working on the marketing side of it now. I'm not writing so much.
Yeah.
And I make a lot of the videos with the sock monkeys. And of course, to do that, I got to actually make the sock monkeys, and that takes time.
Yes.
I think I got 11 of them now, and there's supposed to be 12. Oh. And then when I get all 12, I'm going to start maybe doing some YouTube videos and just have a little show. It'll be I don't know if you remember the Brady Bunch. There was the Brady Bunch variety show. This still be like the Driftwood Blackheart variety show, and it'll be like little skits with the sock monkeys. And I play piano and I play guitar, and I don't want to get into politics too much, but I might, take a few stabs at people that are being greedy, just to kind of maybe help make people give more to charity and help people out. And like I said, that's the plan anyway.
Yes. And how easy is it to make a sock monkey? Because I think it's something that maybe you get a little pack for Christmas and you never actually end up making it because you're not really interested.
It takes time. I maybe a couple hours a day. Like when I get home from work, I'll work on one. But basically, it's just one pair of socks makes one sock monkey. So the first one isn't much. You make the body and the legs and the head, and then the other sock makes the tail and the arms and the face. So if I were to sit down and maybe spend 6 hours, I could get one done, but I usually just spend a couple hours a day. So
yeah. Do you have to just fold it, or is it like scissors and all glue and all sorts of things like that? As well?
Yeah, there's not much work to it. I got a sewing machine, and that makes things a lot quicker.
Oh,
right. Yeah, basically, you chop them up and sew them up, and just there's not much to it really. I learned how to do it on like a YouTube video, one video, and then I was like, oh, that's easy. Anyone can do that. Because I'm not much of a seamstress myself.
Yes.
I don't make clothes, and I was gonna make clothes for them, like little shirts and stuff and little outfits, but then I realized that I'm not that good of a sewer. You have all these patterns, and there's a lot to it, and that's I'm not doing that. Sock monkeys are easy. Sewing clothes is not.
No, just put patches on it. That's the solution.
Yeah, I think. Well, if you look, they got the initials. Like I put if they want to buy one, say some girl's name's Sally, I'll put an S on it or something. Yeah. And sort of personalize them a little bit that way.
Yeah, Sally. That's a good choice of name. Where are we able to find the book series and the merchandise as well when it comes out, and keep up to date with you on social media? Okay, so if you go to www.driftwoodblackheart.com, that's my website, and then there's links to all the social media sites like TikTok and Instagram, Facebook,
I think Twitter. I'm not too busy on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. I try to just I'll post something if something new comes out. But Twitter, I'm pretty busy on TikTok, like with the videos and stuff, trying to get out there. And then the books, you'll see the links to the books there. And also every time a book comes out, I'll have more information about the next book coming out. And the merchandise, as soon as the second book comes out, I'm going to update the website. So when the second book is published, there'll be a link for that. There'll also be a link for the merchandise. And then maybe by the end of the series, I hope to get the charity thing started.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for joining us here on the show. It's been great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Now I got to go to work and do the 9 to 5 thing.
Enjoy.
Not writing or sock monkeys. I'm not there yet. I still got to pay the bills. I'm a starving artist right now. So.